Located in modern-day Jordan, Petra was once the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, a civilization so advanced that they literally carved their buildings and streets directly into the rock using basic tools. Their engineering was so far ahead of its time that even today, historians still struggle to understand how they managed to build such a city in the middle of an unforgiving desert. At a time when most civilizations were using mud and wood, the Nabateans were designing complex water systems, carving massive facades into cliffs, and creating an entire city that blended perfectly with the natural landscape. One of the most impressive things about Petra is its underground water system. Despite being surrounded by brutal desert terrain, the Nabateans figured out how to collect and store enough water to keep their people alive and comfortable. Along with their water management system, the Nabateans also built hidden rooms and tunnels deep inside the rock. The exact purpose isn't fully clear, but most historians agree that these areas were used for specific rituals and royal burials. They designed the city in such a way that ordinary visitors only saw the regular structures, while the most important places were kept underground and out of sight. But the Nabateans weren't just incredible builders. They also turned Petra into one of the most important trade hubs of the ancient world. The city sat on key routes that connected Arabia with Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and instead of fighting wars, the Nabateans focused on controlling the flow of spices and incense that moved through their territory. As more merchants passed through Petra, the city became wealthier and even more influential, which allowed them to expand their underground systems and hidden chambers even further. Over time, things started to change for Petra. The Roman Empire had become the most powerful force in the region, and when they developed new trade routes, those routes completely bypassed Petra. Since most international trade began moving through Roman-controlled cities and ports, Petra slowly began to lose its importance. Fewer merchants entered the region, and without constant trade, the Nabateans found it harder to maintain their systems. The city became more isolated, and many of its people moved away in search of better opportunities. Eventually, Petra was almost completely abandoned. The streets became silent, and the desert slowly covered its buildings with sand and dust. For nearly 1,000 years, the city was forgotten. Only a few Bedouin tribes still knew about it, and they kept it hidden from outsiders. It wasn't until the early 1800s that a European explorer, pretending to be a local traveler, reached the site and brought Petra back to the world's attention. Today, Petra stands as a silent reminder of a civilization that once mastered the desert and then vanished almost completely from history. Located high in the Andes Mountains of Peru, Machu Picchu is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites in the world. It was built by the Inca in the 15th century and is located on a narrow ridge between two steep peaks surrounded by dense jungle and deep valleys. The most remarkable thing about Machu Picchu is that it stands in a place where it seems almost impossible to build anything at all. At a time when most people were still living in lowland settlements, the Inca managed to transport huge stone blocks up the mountain without the use of wheels or animals. They cut and shaped each stone so precisely that the blocks fit together perfectly without mortar, and even after centuries of earthquakes and heavy rain, the structures remained standing. The city wasn't just impressive for its location and stonework. The Inca also built terraces along the mountainsides to grow crops, using the steep slopes to their advantage. These terraces helped prevent landslides and made farming possible at such a high altitude, showing just how advanced their engineering and planning were. Machu Picchu also has several mysterious structures whose exact purpose is still debated. There are temples, ceremonial plazas, and finely carved stones that suggest the city was not just a home, but also a religious and administrative center. Some areas align with the movements of the sun and stars, showing that the Inca had a deep understanding of astronomy and used it in their city planning. Just like Petra, Machu Picchu had an impressive water management system. The Inca built a network of aqueducts and drainage channels that carried fresh mountain water throughout the city. This not only provided drinking water, but also prevented erosion and landslides, keeping the terraces and buildings safe even during heavy rains. Despite its brilliance, Machu Picchu didn't stay occupied for long. When the Spanish conquered Peru in the 16th century, they began to take over the Inca Empire's main cities and resources. Even though the Spanish never actually discovered Machu Picchu, the conquest caused widespread fear and disruption across the region. The people living in Machu Picchu gradually left, and their homes, temples, and terraces were abandoned. Some moved to other Inca settlements that were easier to defend, while others merged with nearby communities to survive. Without its inhabitants, the city quickly fell silent. Over time, the jungle grew over the streets and buildings, hiding the city almost completely from view. Machu Picchu remained forgotten for centuries, until it was rediscovered by a European explorer in the early 1900s. Today, Machu Picchu stands as a remarkable reminder of the Inca civilization, hidden for centuries and preserved almost exactly as they left it. Located in modern-day Iraq, Babylon was once one of the most powerful and wealthy cities in the ancient world. It rose to prominence as a center of trade, culture, and learning. It was a hub for connecting merchants, scholars, and travelers from across Mesopotamia. Under King Nebuchadnezzar, the city reached its peak. Massive walls surrounded Babylon to protect it from invaders, while grand palaces, temples, and the possibly legendary hanging gardens reflected its wealth and ambition. The city wasn't just about impressive buildings, it was also a hub of law and administration, with systems in place to govern its citizens, settle disputes, and manage resources efficiently. Its markets thrived, and the city controlled key trade routes along the Euphrates, bringing in goods like textiles, grains, and luxury items from across the region. The streets were filled with bustling markets, vibrant art, and religious ceremonies, showing a city alive with activity and influence. Babylon wasn't just rich in material wealth, it was also a center of knowledge, governance, and economic power, making it one of the most valuable cities of its time. But in 539 BC, everything changed. Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, and the city's control shifted from its native rulers to a foreign empire. While the Persians respected some of the city's structures, but the political and economic power of Babylon began to decline. Over time, successive invasions and changes in empire led to the city being gradually abandoned. Without its rulers and merchants, Babylon lost its vitality. Buildings fell into ruin, streets were deserted, and what was once one of the greatest cities of the ancient world slowly crumbled. By the time historians and explorers visited centuries later, Babylon was little more than a collection of ruins in the desert, a shadow of its former glory. Yet even in its destruction, the story of Babylon remains a powerful reminder of how empires rise, fall, and how a city that was once invaluable can vanish almost entirely from the world stage. Today, Babylon remains a symbol of human ambition and the fleeting nature of power, a city that once dazzled the world and then disappeared almost entirely from history. Petra, Machu Picchu, and Babylon may no longer thrive, but their stories continue to captivate us. From deserts and mountains to ancient empires, these lost cities show the incredible heights of human ambition and tell us how even the greatest civilizations can vanish, leaving behind mysteries that still fascinate the world today.